One.
What's up, peeps? This is the 14th episode of Feast. Frank, Eric, Andy, Social Talk. And today we're going to be talking about using traveling as a way to come up with amazing content. For anyone who's on the road, whether it's once a week or once a month, there's always an opportunity to create content and get inspired. Not an excuse to do nothing at all. And when I travel, I typically come up with some of the best content that I ever put out. And that's because I get to talk to people, I'm around people, I'm on a plane sitting next to someone talking to them and just shooting the shit and learning about them. And stuff pops into my head and I create content. And if you've ever seen me at a conference or somewhere, you've probably seen this. I don't leave home without it. I've always got my gear with me when I travel, and that's because I don't want to miss an opportunity. And although you can always whip your cell phone out, I like to have my gear with me and make sure I'm getting the best quality content I could put out. So again, don't leave home without your equipment if you have it, but don't be afraid to pull this out if you're inspired to create something. You're walking down the road, everyone's doing it. Don't feel stupid. I create content all the time and I'm talking to the camera and people walk by me. It's fine. I'm going to still keep creating. So I would use travel as that opportunity to be inspired and not a reason to say, oh, I'm not home, I can't do it, I don't have the time. Make the time, carve out a few minutes for yourself, and you'd be amazed at the type of content you start putting out, especially if you got a good scene behind you. Eric, what do you got for us?
Yeah, Frank. So I don't have all that fancy equipment. I do own a tripod, but this is my equipment. I bring it everywhere I go. I never leave home without it. So if you're a little more low tech like me, then there you go. Just bring your phone and you always have stuff with you. Listen, I was having a conversation with an advisor, partner, friend of mine the other day, and she was saying she's going to be off the grid. She's going to a few work events and she's going on some personal travel. Nothing crazy, but she was just kind of a little bit decompressed. And this is the same person who was telling me a few days earlier how she wants to have consistent content and she never has inspiration for content. And I had to politely push her a little bit, and I had to say, where are you going? And we got into this whole conversation about how where she was going actually could be the perfect backdrop for new content that she can now have when she gets back. Whether she posts while she's away or whether she posts when she gets back, it really doesn't matter. The reality is it's the perfect landscape. I'll give you a perfect example for me. I was in a meeting in Seattle, Washington a couple of years ago, and I tied in some content that I wanted to talk about surrounded around Amazon headquarters in Washington State, Seattle area. And I also tied in the very first original Starbucks, which is in Seattle at the pier there. So I did that all in my content creation. The ideas came when I got to Seattle. How many times do you blow an opportunity when you are away for business or personal travel, when you ultimately could have had a great idea, just, again, pulling out your equipment, not so fancy, doesn't have to be perfect, and really making something that's going to be impressionable and last for your audience. Andy, what do you think about that?
Yeah, Eric, I'm going to take what you just said and now squeeze it into conferences, because for you, most of your work travel might be going to and from conferences. So use a conference as an opportunity to create great content. Who are you surrounded by? You're surrounded by all your colleagues. So why not take a few of your colleagues, create some cooperative content together to blast out to your audience? It's a great way to use conferences as an opportunity to create great content. In addition, at a conference, if you're lucky enough to be speaking at the conference, here's another content opportunity. When you're done speaking, when you have an audience member come up to you and say, man, that was a great talk, it resonated with me, use that as an opportunity to take out your phone, record that individual, get some testimonial about your talk, and now you have more content to use. Now, last but certainly not least, guys, when I go back to what Frank said about being prepared, bringing your equipment, I talk about what Eric said, using the environment to create great content and then do it at a conference. This is how F.E.A.S.T started, gang. Eric, Frank, and I were at a conference. Frank was prepared with his equipment. Eric said, let's use the environment to create great content because we're at this conference, and F.E.A.S.T was born. Thanks, Paul Wilson, for letting us make that happen. Now, last but certainly not least, you might be sitting there going, it sounds like a lot of work. It's because it is. If you want to create great content, differentiate yourself from the market, you've got to put the time and the effort in to make this happen. So that's it for Feast 14, guys. We'll be back next week with Feast 15. Until then, I'm out. Frank, Eric, what do you got?
I'm out. Do cool shit.
That's it. Make it a great day. Peace.